from Sun TV, broadcasting to the world from studios in Providenciales, in the beautiful by nature Turks and Caicos Islands. Sun TV, your source for real news as it happens.
Todd said he has decided to leave it up to the next elected government to make the final decision on the proposed 28-story hotel and conference center, but the developer Hugh McLean has expressed his disappointment. I'm Leslie Garland and you're watching Sun TV. Few issues have generated as much heated public discussion in the Turks and Caicos Islands over the past few months as the plan to build a skyscraper in Grace Bay. More than 400 persons attended a public meeting on the subject just a few weeks ago, and close to 1,000 signed a petition in support of it. But Governor Todd says he has given careful consideration to all the issues concerning and surrounding the development, had discussions with those involved, and taken account of advice, formal and informal representations, and the results of the public consultation. Todd said that he has asked the Attorney General to consider options for amendments to legislation which would permit higher-rise developments than those currently covered by existing law. He has also asked the TCIG Chief Executive Officer to instruct the Planning Department to consider options for updating the zoning, planning, and development rules as a basis for work the elected government can continue in November. But all of this has not gone down well with developer Hugh McLean.
My initial reaction was disappointment. It wasn't surprise, it was disappointment. I had known for some time that it possibly was heading in that direction. I was disappointed because of primarily because of the delay that this will cause. And I warned the governor of that months ago, that if the process took too long, and once I knew there were elections, I said if it extends beyond the elections, it's not just the 10th of November, it's probably many months beyond that for a minister get his portfolio, to understand what the portfolio is about, to deal with everything else government has to deal with. And I said that it would be extremely difficult to keep my development partners, in the boat with us as a group, and we need all the partners that we have. And that's the biggest fear that I have, is that the delay will cause a real setback and possibly the end of the project.
Is it true that you have received offers from other Caribbean countries?
Well, my partners are always in discussions with other jurisdictions, specifically whether there are other Caribbean countries. I know that there have been other states in the United States, and certainly other cities that have wanted them to go to their locations, but I can't speak to whether or not a specific Caribbean country has approached them.
Given that both political parties have come out against your project in its present form, are you prepared to scale down?
We've always been prepared to compromise, and at a meeting last Thursday at the governor's office in Grand Turk, we made that clear to all the party leaders that we would. In fact, we spoke specifically about numbers, and we didn't get to the ultimate number. The conversation ended and got off topic, but we did certainly indicate we're willing to make a compromise, and we said that for the past 2 months.
Some people said that your plan was lacking on specifics. What is your opinion on that?
Well, our plan was to present an idea to the people, certainly to the government, and then ultimately in the public meeting to the people, for their views on raising height and density limits. It wasn't specifically to come and say, this is what we want to build. We said, this is what we need in order to build that. So it would be impossible. Initially we came with 28 floors. We're looking at a compromise at something lower than that, a compromise on the other buildings. It would depend on the ultimate site. I mean, if we were to have selected one site and government were to say, no, there are too many objections in that area, you have to move, then the design might be different. The angle to the sun, the angle to the beach, and so on. So we had enough specifics for the people to determine, and for the government certainly to determine, whether or not a higher density, high-rise was something that they would entertain. We weren't looking for approval from the governor for our project in total. We were simply looking for a change in the law to allow us to present a detailed plan. So obviously the detailed plan would have to follow from the change in the law. We wouldn't be submitting plans for something that was didn't comply with the law at the time. That would be pointless.
What does the TCI stand to lose by not having this project?
beyond the loss of over 1,000 jobs, and that's 1,000 jobs directly that we would have employed people in. It would have been approximately 500 in construction and then 500 or more thereafter in the resort property itself. So that's 1,000 direct jobs from us. There would be at least another 500, perhaps up to an additional 1,000 jobs for others who are subcontractors, people providing services. So that's employment between 1,000 and 2,000 people. There's a loss of opportunity in small businesses that would have been supplying us. There's a loss of government revenue of $24 million a year. But most important, there's a loss of confidence. Small business people and large business people alike in the Turks and Caicos have told me in the past 2 months since we brought our project forward that there's a renewed confidence in the Turks and Caicos Islands. People are seeing that. Investors are starting to come in, hearing about our project. If we lose the project, then that investor confidence will evaporate. And that's my biggest fear. I just want the people to know that certainly the project is not dead. It's becoming increasingly difficult. If development partners who had the ability to finance, to acquire the hotel operator, to build and operate the hotel themselves, and certainly to market our condominium component. I mean, there are other smaller developers who are concerned whether they can sell 2 or 3 condominiums a month. We would be looking to sell out at least 50% of the project in the first 3 months and know that we could do that with our development partners because they've done that before. They've built 10,000 units over the last 10 years. They have a huge high-end client base who would be interested in coming to the Turks and Caicos Islands for that component of our project. Likewise, if we're successful in that part, then the hotel will be built at the same time, but the success for the hotel would follow, then jobs would be immediate. It's not something that's going to take 2 years to arrange the financing, 2 years to get started, 2 years to break ground. We would expect that had we got the go-ahead today, had the governor indicated that he would have changed the law, that we would have immediately finished our negotiations on a second parcel of property. We have 1 parcel locked up. We'd be looking at the second parcel that we needed. We would have been bringing our detailed plans to the planning board. That would be dealt with under whoever gets elected, under the new regime, under the elected government. And the elected government would have had an opportunity to step into office with us on the run. I mean, running with the project, not waiting for them to set up so they could make a decision as to whether or not they could change the law, so we could decide whether we could live within those parameters. So the whole thing has just been a dragged out process which may unfortunately cost the Turks and Caicos considerably.
There has been a major concern about the fire safety component. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I'm not sure where that concern is coming from, but certainly I recognize that fire safety is an important issue. But my partners have built well over 200 high-rise properties over the last 20-25 years. Those high-rise properties all use the latest fire suppression techniques. They have sprinklers, fire suppressant doorways, fire escapes, etc. No one has ever died in a fire in any of those 200 properties. No fire department in the world can go higher than 5, 6, or 7 floors, depending. 7 is the actual maximum. We don't even have a fire department here. We had said to the government that we would certainly consider building a fire station. If the government were to provide Crown land, we would build a fire station, and on a pro rata basis, if we had a third of the hotel rooms in Grace Bay, we would contribute to a third of its operating costs, provided the other hotels in the Grace Bay area provided to its operating costs as well on a pro rata basis. So fire safety, we believe, should not be a big concern. Certainly the statistics in high-rise buildings across North America, which these would be built to the same standard, are not, it's nothing to worry about. So that's, obviously you have to build to meet the fire codes, you have to install and maintain that equipment, but beyond that, that should not be the most significant concern of anyone.
We also asked where exactly in the Grace Bay area will the buildings be located, and if reports that Lord Ashcroft was a backer for this venture were true.
The first one, I'm going to decline to give a specific answer. I can assure you it is a parcel of which there are a few neighbors, no one immediately behind. We would not be blocking the view of anyone, but it is in Grace Bay. The second issue with respect to Lord Ashcroft, all I can tell you is I've only met Lord Ashcroft once, more than 20 years ago, briefly. We've had no discussions with Lord Ashcroft. Lord Ashcroft is not a development partner in any way, shape, or form with my development group. The next step is, well, twofold. We can either have the political parties, if they come back to the table and say to the governor that in some kind of restricted form or under certain conditions they do not oppose him changing the law, then that would allow him to still change the law within the next few weeks. The development agreement that would be part and parcel of what we would need could be, there's no reason why the parties could not have an input in that. If we have to wait for whoever wins the election, as I said, it may delay issues for months, and we're going to lose the entire tour season to market our property. We're going to lose, so we wouldn't be getting started for probably another 6 months as opposed to possibly less than 2 months. So it's not, it's a huge loss, but the biggest loss is if I can't convince my development partners to stay with us down this road, then I won't be able to proceed. We made it known to the parties, and I think below 20 is certainly something that we would consider, and part and parcel of those considerations are what kind of incentives, which used to be called concessions, were possible. When we first had our business model and our financial plan, the interim administration was offering 0 concessions, 0 breaks on stamp duty, 0 breaks on anything else. We had to pay 100%. It was on that basis that we said, we can do this if you give us 28 and 22 floors. Now that they've come forward and introduced a policy of incentives, we believe that we could be successful at a lower level, and that's why we're able now to say we could come possibly to below 20 floors, certainly above 10. I mean, if we're talking 10 or 12 floors, the planning department in the report that the investment unit, or their contribution to the report indicated that they felt that incremental change would be the best. Well, if that's true, and I'm not disputing what they're saying, but then you have to realize that if the change is incremental, there only are 2 or 3 properties left on Grace Bay. So if it were incremental from 7 to 9 or 10 and then 10 to 12, we would probably be topped out at 12. And we simply can't make our project work, and it's not of interest to my development partners. My partners, and I made it clear to the interim administration at the outset, are high-rise, high-end specialists, and they're not eco, low-density, low-rise. If there's simply not enough land remaining in Grace Bay to allow for that. And for what we wanted to do, the hotel, the conference center, something that would provide that kind of capacity, that kind of government revenue, you need to go higher. You need to have all the people concentrated into a smaller area so that they're not walking miles to the conference center, that they can take the elevator down, go into the conference, return to their rooms if they want to, and so on. It's a conference center. It's not a 5 or 6 star resort property. We believe that can complement the higher end properties. The kind of people that come to conferences, whether they be physicians, business executives, entrepreneurs, are the kind of people who will come back. They come to a conference on their own. They'll stay in a room by themselves. If they come back once they come to Turks and Caicos, they'll come back with their families. And if they're the CEO of a company or a highly paid specialist in medicine, they'll come back and stay in one of the higher end properties. So it's a win-win for everybody. We'll attract these people to the islands the first time around, and the second, third, and fourth times they may go somewhere else, which is fine with us.
That's our news package for today, September 17th, 2012. Join us again tomorrow when Sun TV brings you more real news as it happens directly to your computer, your mobile phone, or your tablet. Until then, I'm Leslie Garland, and you're watching Sun TV.